page number 15, we were discussing reproduction in plants. So first we discussed asexual reproduction. There are two modes of reproduction in plants, asexual and sexual. So in asexual, what is the difference between asexual and sexual? In sexual reproduction, fusion of gametes is required. There is a fusion of gametes. But in asexual reproduction, fusion of gametes is not required. Okay, only one parent can do asexual reproduction. Both the gametes or both parents are not involved in asexual reproduction. You understand the difference between asexual and sexual? In sexual, the fusion of gametes is done. But in asexual, only one parent is involved and it can form their offsprings. I mean, its own offspring, right? Now we have discussed two types. We have discussed binary fission and fragmentation, I guess. So I'll repeat those two types and then we'll move forward. So basically in binary fission, look at the screen, I'll be drawing. In binary fission, what happens? Just a minute. Okay. In binary fission, what happens? It happens in bacteria. Okay, it takes place in bacteria. Very smaller organisms undergo binary fission. Right. For example, we are taking bacteria. Now, binary means two and fission means differentiation or dividing. That means the parent or the parent forming the offspring will be divided into two. Okay. Binary means two and fission means dividing. So it will be divided into two. Then I'll show you with the help of a diagram. Take a bacteria as an example. Okay. Look at your books also. There is a diagram given. Okay. Like this. Now this is a mature cell which is ready to divide. Okay. Which cell? A bacteria cell which is ready to divide. Now in the second stage, what happens? Nucleus gets divided. Now, what is the process known as where nucleus gets divided? We have a name for it. It is known as karyokinesis. Okay. So in higher standards, you will come to know about these terms, karyokinesis, cyrokinesis, and everything. So why it is karyokinesis? Because nucleus in scientific term is known as karyon. Karyon, karyon. So that's why it is known as karyokinesis. Kinesis means dividing. That means nucleus division is known as karyokinesis. So here in the second stage, this nucleus starts dividing. Okay, the nucleus, they have divided in the second stage. Okay, these are two nucleus and a wall is forming in between. Okay, from both sides, there is a constriction forming in between. Then in the third step, what happens? A proper wall is formed. Okay, a wall is formed and nucleus here one. So a wall is formed in the third step. What happens in fourth step? The last step, both the cells get differentiated. Okay, they are divided into two because of this wall formed. First, there is a constriction formed. Constriction means a bend-like structure. Then this forms a wall between them. And then both the nucleus gets divided. Finally, what happens? Both the cells get divided. Okay, both the cells get divided into two because it is a binary fission. This is a nucleus and these are the two cells which are divided. So at last, two daughter cells are produced. Okay, the result is two daughter cells are produced. So that's why it is known as binary fission, dividing into two. Is it clear to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. If any point, if you feel that you are not comfortable or you are not getting my point, please stop me at that point. Ask me again. I'll repeat the procedure. Okay. I hope this is clear. Let us move to the next one. Yes. So this is binary fission where the offspring divides into two. That's why it is known as binary fission. So you can read the paragraph also. In some organisms like chlorella and chlamydomonas, one cell divides into four daughter cells. That means in some organisms, some lower organisms like chlorella and chlamydomonas, you have to learn these examples. What happens? One cell divides into four daughter cells. In binary fission, it was two daughter cells. Here in chlorella and chlamydomonas, the cell is dividing into four daughter cells. And thus the fission is known as multiple fission. Where when the daughter cells produced are more than 2, it will be referred as multiple fission, right? So that is known as multiple fission where 4 daughter cells are formed. Now the second process or the second method of asexual reproduction is budding. Okay, budding. Now budding, you can see budding in yeast and hydra. Okay, hydra is a water plant, an aquatic plant, and yeast which we have it in our homes also. So in these things you can see budding. Now what is budding? The parent. Okay, look at this diagram. It is a parent. Okay, suppose this is a yeast cell. Okay, just suppose this is a yeast cell. Okay, this yeast cell will form an outgrowth. Okay, just a little small outgrowth it will form, and it will also have nucleus. Okay, so an outgrowth will be formed. Then this nucleus starts dividing. In the next stage, this nucleus will start dividing like this. It will grow and it will start dividing. Okay, and this third stage, what happens? Daughter yeast cell is produced. That means from this nucleus, from this cell, this nucleus, a small daughter yeast cell is produced. Okay, you can see the diagram also. At last, a daughter yeast cell is produced. Now what happens? This yeast cell, this one gets detached. Detached means it gets apart from this particular cell. This particular cell, it gets detached and it leads a single life. Okay. Now it is an independent cell which is living its own life. Okay. Now it has nothing to do with this cell. From this cell, it has been detached in the next stage. So along with its nuclei. So it has also nuclei because when nuclei is not there, it will not live. Okay. So nuclei is present for living purpose. So along with the nuclei, it is detached from the parent body and it will lead an independent life. Now this is an individual. Okay. Like for example, our parents, they give birth to us. So after detaching from them, that means after coming out of mother's womb, we are a single individual, right? We are not in our mother's womb anymore. We are an individual at that time when we are removed out of our mother's womb. So similarly, when this get detached from this cell, it leads an independent life. Now this is known as a new yeast cell, which is now going to grow. Okay, you got my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can also make notes along with what I'm saying. You can just write it down or you can underline in your textbooks. That will be better. Everything is given in your textbook. Just underline those things what I'm saying. Okay. Now the third method of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. First was binary fission. Second was budding. Third is fragmentation. In fragmentation, what happens? These also take place in smaller organisms like Spirogyra. Okay, Spirogyra is an organism, a lower organism, which are made of long ribbon-like fibers. One filament grows and breaks off into 2 or more parts called fragments. Now, these Spirogyra, for example, take this as an example. Suppose if Spirogyra, okay, now this is a ladder-like structure. Okay, this is a ladder-like structure. Long, okay, long, elongated. What is written here? Long ribbon-like filaments. One filament grows and breaks off. So this is a ribbon-like filament, which seems like a ladder. Okay. Now what happens in the second stage? It divides into fragments. Fragments means it will divide into smaller fragments, like smaller ladders, we can say. 1, 2. Okay. These are 2 fragments of this one. Okay, this is a whole Spirogyra body, a ribbon-like body. The second stage, it divides into fragments. So small fragments, it will get divided. Now this each fragment, that means this one will grow into a new individual. Okay, it regrows and forms a big individual. Okay, it will again look like a ladder-like shape like this one. So it will regrow. Both will grow, both will regrow and form a new individual. Okay, this type of reproduction is known as fragmentation. This is very easy. Spirogyra is the example. Take the example of Spirogyra. Draw this diagram, ladder-like structure, ribbon-like structure. The second stage, you have to divide both. It will get divided into two fragments each, and then these two fragments individually will regrow and form a new one. Okay, this is the new one. So this is fragmentation. You got this?
Yes,
Everyone?
ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let us talk about spore formation. This is the fourth method of asexual reproduction, spore formation. Now, spore formation is very common in some plants. Okay, these are some plants, some lower plants, not the higher plants, lower plants. We have lower plants and higher plants. So, some lower plants like mosses and ferns, there this type of asexual reproduction is found in ferns and in mosses. You can underline in your textbook. It is given in the first sentence itself. Spore formation is common in plants like mosses and ferns. Okay, underline that one. Just a minute. Okay. Underline that one. Now, these mosses, ferns, these are ornamental plants. What do you mean by ornamental plants? The plants which are used to make ornaments. You must have seen some ornaments are made up of some kind of plants. Okay, they are dried up or they are just made when tribals used to make ornaments from these plants. Okay, ornamental plants are made from mosses and ferns. Now, the spores, here the topic is spore formation, right? The topic is spore formation. Now, what happens? They develop. Now, suppose this is a mosses. Okay, this is a mosses or a fern we can take. This is a fern. So it will develop or it will bear spores on it lower side. Okay, spores on it lower side. That means this is a whole leaf, a fern you can say. So in the lower side, that means below the leaf, it will develop spores, right? Now when these leaves, the leaves bearing spores, when they fall on the ground, what happens? When they get suitable condition, they will start growing into another individual or they will give rise to a new plant. Okay, when they reach suitable conditions for growth, they will germinate. The spores, they start germinating and then they will give rise to a new plant, a new firm plant. Okay, is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I'll repeat. It's very simple. Suppose this is a fern. Fern is an example of spore formation. So below that fern body or below its surface, below the leaf surface, some spores are formed or they bear some spores. Now these spore bearing leaves, when they fall on the ground, when they come in contact with the soil, what happens? When suitable conditions are there, they will start germinating and they will eventually form a new plant. So this is about spore formation. This is very easy. These spore bearing leaves, when they come in contact with soil and in suitable condition, they will grow into a new plant. That's it. So next one, the fifth one and the last one is vegetative reproduction, or we can say vegetative propagation. Okay, we can also say reproduction or we can say vegetative propagation. Propagation means breeding. Okay, so new plants can be produced by certain parts of plants such as leaf, stem and root. Now leaf, stem and root, you all know, you must have studied in 6th standard or 7th standard that leaf, stem and root, these are the growing parts of the plants. These are the growing parts of the plants. They grow continuously, like roots grow downwards, stem grow upwards, leaves grow laterally, right? So these are the growing parts. Now, these growing parts, the leaf, the stem, and the root, they are capable of giving rise to new plants. They give rise to new plants, and the new plants are known as propagules. Underline that. It is given in blue color in that paragraph. Propagules. Propagules is nothing but the new plant which is produced by vegetative parts like leaf, stem, and roots. And this process of producing new plants from these growing parts is known as vegetative propagation.
Ma'am,
Yes,
ma'am, can you tell once again what we have to underline?
yes, sure. So come to the point number 5, vegetative reproduction. Can you see vegetative reproduction on page number 15?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So in that paragraph, a blue word is given, propagules, right?
Yes.
You have to underline that, underline the whole sentence. Okay, these vegetative parts of a plant that are capable of giving rise to new plants called propagules, and the process is known as vegetative propagation. You have to underline that much. So
Yes.
what are all the vegetative parts? The leaf, the root, and the stem. The growing parts are known as the vegetative parts. Leaf, root, and stem. These are capable of giving rise to new plants, which are known as propagules, and this process is known as vegetative reproduction. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you can write vegetative reproduction or vegetative propagation. Both are correct. Now, vegetative reproduction or vegetative propagation, they can be either natural or artificial. It can be both, naturally also, artificially also. So first we will discuss natural vegetative propagation. On same page, next topic is natural vegetative propagation. Now the first one, you know, natural vegetative propagation, what are the means of vegetative propagation? Like what is needed? Leaf, root, and stem. You all know this much, right? This is very clear to you that leaf, root, and stem, the growing parts of the plant, they do the vegetative propagation. So here the process is natural. So what happens when reproduction by stem? What happens? Sometimes you must have seen grass and mint leaves. Mint leaves is pudina, right? Mint leaves, they grow horizontally parallel to the ground. That means, like suppose this is a ground, okay? Now grass, it will grow, some grass will grow vertically, okay? But this is not the case here. Some grass will grow horizontally, okay? Like this, horizontal, lateral we can say. Okay, not vertical but horizontal. Some grass grow like this. Mint leaves also grow like horizontally sometimes. Okay, so when they grow horizontally, they have new roots and shoots at their tips or nodes, we can say. Nodes is the point from where a new leaf or a new bud will arise. So they have new roots and shoots which are developing at their nodes. And these roots, what happens? Where does roots grow? It will grow downward. Root is present at the lower portion of the plant. It will grow downward and the stem will grow upward. So it has these horizontal growing plants have roots which grow downward and the shoot which grow upward. Shoot is the stem, the leaf. The shoot system consists of, you must have studied in 6th standard. You have shoot system. It consists of fruit, flower, leaves, stem, etc. Right? So this will grow upward. Now, let us take an example of ginger. Ginger is a modified stem. Okay, this is modified through the process of vegetative propagation naturally. Now, ginger, it has nodes and internodes. You know, how does a ginger look like? Like, I'll make a ginger. Okay, these are the scales inside a ginger. Now, this point, this bended point is known as a node. Okay, from here, another little bud will be formed. So, a ginger will be looking like something like this. Like, you must have seen some you must have seen ginger at your home. It will look something like this. Okay, it will have some nodes and internodes, and from those nodes, new buds are formed. Now it has scaly leaves. You know, when our mother take ginger to put it into some curry, she will obviously remove the peel first. So that peel is very scaly. It has scales over it. So you can see some axillary buds also. What is the axillary bud here? This one. Okay, this one is the axillary bud which has grown from the node. Okay, which has grown from the node. This is the axillary bud. Okay, axillary, AB stands for axillary bud. Just a minute. Yes. So this, from this node, where this node, from this node, this axillary bud is arising, or this bud is arising, this bud is known as axillary bud, right? So this is by the process of vegetative we can say vegetative propagation in asexual means, right? Asexual means, and it is in stem. So basically, ginger is a modified stem where it has nodes and internodes, and through that nodes, axillary bud arises. This is the axillary bud. You got my point? Everyone, can I get a yes if you got my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now come to page number 16. Page number 16. The last paragraph on page number 16, there is one paragraph given related to potato. Now what happens? Similarly, potato is also a modified stem. We talked about ginger. It is a modified stem. Now we are talking about potato. It is also a modified stem. Now potato, when you look at a potato, you can see some eye-like structure. Okay, some bended eye-like structure you can see. Okay, so at some points you can see like eye-like structure. You can see in this diagram also in your book. You can see eyes is marked there. So you can see it's an eye-like structure. It is known as vegetative bud. These eye-like structure, these are known as vegetative bud. Now, if you cut this portion, what happens? If you cut this portion, this eye-like structure, and if you place it in a soil, okay, if you place it in a soil, moist soil, now when it will get proper growing conditions, what will happen? It will form a complete new plant. Just look at the diagram in your book. You can see a potato first, then the next diagram you can see from that potato another green stem is growing, right? That is the formation of a new plant. The stem grows from that particular eye-like structure which we have removed and put it in the soil. We kept it in moist soil and it grows in the growing conditions. When it get suitable condition, it will grow and form a new stem. So this is in the case of potato. So potato is also a modified stem. That means here in ginger and in potato, when we take out these axillary bud, these vegetative bud and put them in soil, it will eventually grow into a new plant. They will give rise to a new plant. So that's their, that is their characteristic, a good characteristic, that they can grow with some portions also. When these some little portions are put in soil, they can grow into a whole new plant. Is it clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this thing is same is in the case of onion also. So ginger, potato, onion, all are modified stem. And because why they are modified stem? Because they perform additional functions of food storage. You can see on the same page, a green box is there. In that it is written ginger, potato and onion are called modified stems because they perform additional functions of food storage and vegetative propagation. So all these three, they do vegetative propagation by stem. So that's why they are known as modified stem. Also, they store food. So this is the quality of these three of them, ginger, potato and onion. Now we will talk about reproduction by leaf. This was the ginger and the potato. This was vegetative propagation by stem. Now we will talk about leaf. Now reproduction by leaf. What happens when some plants like bryophyllum, your example is given here, bryophyllum, this is a kind of a plant. Now this produce buds on the edges. Okay, notches means edges. You can see notches written there. Underline notches and write edges. The meaning of notches is edges, EDGES. So bryophyllum, it produces buds in the edges of leaves. Okay, where you can find the edges on the margins. Like suppose this is a bryophyllum leaf. So this is the margin. Okay, this is the margin. So on the edges, you can see some bud-like structures. These bryophyllum, this plant produces bud-like structure. You can see in the same page, last diagram, you can see a bryophyllum leaf with growing axillary bud. So this will just form some buds on the edges like this. Can you see? Like this, it will form some buds on the edges. Now these buds, the leaves containing buds, when they fall into moist soil, this is a moist soil, this leaf has fallen into this moist soil, it will grow. Okay, it will grow into tiny young plants. Now the last diagram will be looking like this. This is a bryophyllum leaf. This is a bryophyllum leaf. This was the bud which was formed in the initial stage. Now this has grown into axillary buds. Okay, like this it will grow. Okay, you can see in the book also axillary buds have grown in the leaf. You understood this much?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what happens when reproduction by leaf takes place in bryophyllum? The bryophyllum plant, they produce buds in the edges. These are the edges, the margins. Small buds are produced. When these leaf containing buds, they fall into the soil, what will happen? They will form axillary bud. These are the axillary buds. Now these axillary buds, they will get detached and grow into an individual. Okay. So this is about the reproduction by leaves. This is very simple. Only one example is there, which is of bryophyllum. Now we will talk about reproduction by root. On the next page, page number 18, reproduction by root. So reproduction by root, we have 1 to 2 examples. That means sweet potato, asparagus. Asparagus is a plant. So all these, the sweet potato, asparagus, they reproduce by root. You have seen a sweet potato, how it look like. It will look like something like this, a cone-like structure. And at the bottom, it will have a thin root-like structure, right? So you can see the diagram also, book also, diagram is given. So these develop, the sweet potato, asparagus, they develop large swollen fleshy roots. Okay, these are large swollen and fleshy roots. They develop roots at the bottom of their body. Now these roots, they contain food inside them. They are not empty. These roots have food inside them. And then each root is capable of giving rise to a new plant. Here what happens, this root is giving rise to a new plant. Okay, new plant. So this whole body has to do nothing with it. This whole body forms a root which is fleshy, which contains food, and only this root can form a new plant. In carrot also, you can see in next paragraph, carrot, a taproot. Taproot means, you must have studied, taproot means a single widened root. Okay, we have taproot and fibrous root, right? So in taproot, you can see a main root and then small fibers can be seen like this. And fibrous root means like this. Okay, fibrous looks like this thing. Okay, it has many branches, but taproot has a single branch. Okay, a single main root is there. So this is the difference between taproot and fibrous root. So carrot, which has a taproot and is a biennial plant. Biennial plant means it grows every year, takes place every other year. Okay. So carrot also roots grow vegetatively in the first year. And then what happens when the season is off season, when the season is gone, it will die by the end of the second year. Okay. So in the first year, when when they have the growing time, it produces flowers and seeds and grow into a new plant. Okay, this is in the case of carrot. In the case of sweet potato, this root, they form fleshy roots on their bottom. These roots contain food inside them, and these are capable of producing new plants when they fall or when they are detached and put in a moist soil, and in growing conditions, they will form new plants. Is it clear?
Ma'am, what is the meaning of taproot?
Meaning of taproot, I will show you again. Taproot looks something like this. Okay, a V shape, a main taproot is there. You must have studied in class 6 or something. It will look like a V shape like this. Okay, and from this you can see small little fibers arising. Okay, this is found in carrot, radish, etc. And fibrous looks like this. That means some plants have roots which look like this. where one single root is there and many fiber-like structures are present. Okay, like this. It is divided into many fibers. So this is a fibrous root. Tap root is a V-shaped main root is there and some little fibers arises from that. This is found in carrot and radish. You must have seen. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now let us talk about the advantages of vegetative reproduction. We have seen reproduction by root, stem and leaf. Now we will talk about the advantages of vegetative reproduction. Now what are the advantages? When we talk about the advantages of vegetative reproduction, first is that the new plants are formed in a very short time. Okay, we can have a look at the first point. Reproduction by vegetative parts takes place in a shorter time. That means we can produce them very quickly. It will take less time. Okay. Then the second point is new plants thus spread very fast in a small area. That means when we are putting some growing parts in a soil, they will grow eventually and they will cover a large area, right? When we are not doing this, what happens? Sometimes plants, they just grow by their own and they will not cover the whole area. But when we are doing it by means of vegetative propagation, what will happen? We will place all the vegetative parts in different areas and it will cover more area, right? Third one is it is a surer method of propagation. Means we are very confident about the outcome. What we will get, like if we are producing it by root, we will get a new plant, obviously. By root also, by leaf also, by stem also, we are getting a new individual. So we are very sure about this method. We are very confident about this method. And the last point is all the good characters of the mother plant are retained by the daughter. That means the daughter plant, the offspring which is formed by the mother or the parent, all the good characters of the mother are retained. That means the daughter will catch all the good characters of the mother. That means it will have, if the mother is having a good leaf, good structure, the daughter will look identical to her. That means it will be a copy of her mother. Okay. These are the advantages. Now, when we talk about disadvantages, what happens? Disadvantages, we have two disadvantages. As all plants developed by vegetative reproduction are genetically identical, they are likely to be affected simultaneously if a disease spreads in the farm. So here, as I told you, the daughter plant will gain the characters of the mother plant. So they are very identical to each other. They look very similar to each other. So when they look similar to each other, they are genetically identical. Their genes are same. So what will happen? If a disease is spreaded in the farm, they all will get affected. Okay. Like if the disease is not there, then it's okay. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. But if a disease is affected, if a disease comes in the farm, all the plants will be affected. Why? Because this, just a minute. Yes, this is some other plant. Okay, this has formed another plant. Okay, all the plants will look same. Okay, all are very same to each other. All are very identical to each other. So that's why when a disease will affect the farm, all these plants are affected. All the plants will get suffered by the disease. The second point is dispersal of plants does not take place on its own. Daughter plants so developed tend to remain nearby and are restricted to a particular area, leading to competition for resources. Now, dispersal of plants means blowing away of plants. It will not take place on its own. Why? Because the whole land is covered with so many plants. So dispersal will not take place on its own. Okay, the daughter plants, they develop and they tend to remain nearby to that particular restricted area. The daughter plants, they will remain in a particular area. They will not spread sometimes, right? So these are the disadvantages of vegetative reproduction. So is it clear to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So
Yes,
these
ma'am.
are the methods of natural vegetative reproduction. What we talked about just now, reproduction by root, stem and leaf. These were the natural process, or we can say the natural methods of vegetative propagation. Now, vegetative propagation can also be done artificially. Let us talk about that. Now, artificial way, we have 4 ways of artificial reproduction. Okay, 4 ways are there: cutting, layering, grafting, and micropropagation. So, just a minute. Yes, we have 2 to 3 minutes. Let us discuss cutting. Okay, so these days, farmers or horticulturists have developed certain artificial methods of vegetative propagation, such as cutting, layering, grafting, and tissue culture. So horticulture means the growing of process of growing plants. Okay. So all these farmers, horticulturists, those who are interested in growing plants, they have come up with new ideas of artificial methods of growing plants, right? So what are those artificial methods? First one is cutting. In this method, the stem is cut into small pieces, with each bearing an axillary bud. The cut ends are planted in moist soil. After a few days, they strike roots and grow into new plants. This method is normally employed for propagating plants like sugarcane, rose, China rose, lemon, etc. Now, cutting, this is very easy. A plant is taken, a stem is taken, stem is cutted into, like, this is a stem. This is cutted into small pieces. Okay, and each piece will contain an axillary bud. Okay, this is the axillary bud. Each piece will contain axillary bud. Now these cutted ends, these ends are placed in soil. Okay, these are placed in soil, moist soil, and they grow in this soil. When they get suitable condition, the root will formed. Okay, when the root will be formed downwards, the stem will grow upwards, and they will grow into a new plant. So this is mainly found in sugarcane, rose, China rose, and lemon. Please underline these examples. Okay, this will be asked in exam, so you have to write any 2 examples. Underline these: sugarcane, rose, China rose, and lemon. China rose is hibiscus, nothing else. China rose is the scientific name of hibiscus. You can also write hibiscus also. Okay, in place of China rose, you can write hibiscus. Both are same. So this is cutting. Okay, have you all understood this much?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Other topics, which are layering, grafting, and tissue culture, we will discuss in the next class. Whenever is your next class, we will discuss that time. Then we have sexual reproduction left. We will complete this chapter in the next class. If we can do, we will complete it in the next class. So for today, this much is enough. So we are stopping here. You
Ma'am,
may leave the class, or you may stay here if you have another class. Okay.
ma'am,
Yes, what happened?
when will be that unit first exam?
First, FA1.
FA1, ma'am.
Yes, you're talking about FA1. It will be in the month of August after the Independence Day. After Independence Day, there are possibilities. After Independence Day, your FA1 will be conducted. So be prepared. Start studying now itself. Don't wait